3 times in the last 6 races, the top place in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship has changed hands. When the checkered flag waves today, any one of 5 drivers could be leading the championship. None can afford a slip or mistake. NBC Sports presents NASCAR. Today, 250 miles of high-speed, high-stakes NASCAR Busch Series racing from the 1-mile Pikes Peak International Raceway near Colorado Springs. 43 drivers are just seconds from getting their afternoon started on a 100-plus degree day in the Colorado Highlands. All they're waiting for, the official word.
On behalf of Vanessa from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Jerica and Timby and myself, who have lost over 100 pounds on Trimspa, drivers, start your engine!
And welcome to NASCAR on NBC as we get set to bring you the Trimspa Dream Body 250 for the NASCAR Busch Series. Alan Bestwick, Wally Dallenbach, glad you're here with us. And the big topic of the day is the heat. How will the 100-degree-plus temperatures affect the drivers in their cars?
Well, if they didn't prepare 2 days ago, they're in trouble because you need to be drinking a lot of water. We see the temperature here, air temperature 102. That track temperature will go up. But the drivers, I mean, I would be drinking water for about the last 3 days. Plus, I'd have a lot of ice packed in my uniform right now. The race cars, that's a different thing. These things are going to be sliding all over the racetrack today. Those guys in pit lane are going to be busy making adjustments to try to get grip.
The man who slides the best was going to win. That's the phrase I heard in the garage area a lot this morning. How well is our pole sitter going to slide today? Ralph Shaheen's here to tell us.
Well, Alan, last week, due to some contact down on the racetrack at Loudon, New Hampshire, Mike Bliss said of Bobby Hamilton Jr., he said he's got a 10-foot ego and a 4-foot body. Bobby Hamilton said, hey, no problem. I'm not afraid to go toe-to-toe with anybody out on the racetrack. He feels very strongly about his team, very strongly about his car, and he is very happy to be NASCAR's Busch Series' newest bad boy. He's not afraid to talk the smack. The car that he's got with him here today has already won twice this year, and he's got it on the pole for today's race. So he's ready to let the car and his racing do the talking here today. Now to my colleague, Mark Garrett.
In 2002, there were just 2 caution flags. In 2001, just 1. So both of those races boiled down to a fuel mileage battle. A year ago, Hank Parker Jr., with a different team, had a good car, but even better strategy, and that paved the way to victory lane. For a man who's looking for a full-time ride, he would dearly love to do that again today. Alan?
We're ready to go racing at Pikes Peak. The starting lineup and green flag are next. You're watching NASCAR on NBC. NBC Sports coverage of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 is brought to you by Trimspa. Available completely ephedra-free. Get your high-speed Dream Body diet pill today. And by Midas Auto Service Experts. Midas, we do that. Cars are on the track here at Pikes Peak International Raceway. Let's give you a look at the starting lineup and how they'll take the green. Today, Bobby Hamilton Jr. with his 3rd career pole will lead the field to the green flag. Hornaday Jr., Vickers, Keller, all in the tight fight for the championship, all starting in the first 3 rows. Johnny Sauter drives for Richard Childress Racing. He's going to come from row number 4 today, and David Green, the championship leader, back in row number 6. Defending winner of the race, Hank Parker Jr., along with Tim Fedewa in row number 7. Scott Riggs, 2nd in points, going to come from row number 9 today. And you look at the rest of the starting field for today's Trimspa Dream Body 250.
Let's see if we can get a hold of Bobby Jr. in that 25 Marine car. Well, we'll check with him in just a second.
The line's busy.
The line's busy.
You were dialing, but he was on the phone. I guess he didn't have call waiting.
No.
Tammy Jo Kirk in the field, back in row 18, made the field on time. And now the provisional starters for today's race. This Pikes Peak International Raceway, a 1-mile track, very moderate banking here. Only 10 degrees of banking. It seems like more when you look at it, but when you're out there in a car at speed, drivers tell me you really can notice it's not all that steep.
There you have it.
Multiple lanes of racing, though. We'll see drivers running low, high, all over the place all day today.
Tell you, that patch over in 1 and 2, we saw a lot of guys sliding through there. There's a patch over in 1 and 2 that they repaid for the IRL cars to smoothen it out. In practice and in qualifying, we saw a lot of guys when they get on that patch, car goes sliding up the racetrack.
Jason Keller will have to drop to the rear of the field because his team lost an engine yesterday in practice. NASCAR's one engine per weekend rule means he has to go to the tail end of the line for the start. So the 5th place qualifier will start tail up. 250 laps, 250 miles today. 21st race of the NASCAR Busch Series season. Better than $1.2 million on the line, and more importantly, that very tight fight for the NASCAR Busch Series championship takes another step forward today. Glad you've joined us. Green flag, we're underway. Hamilton Jr. with the break in the early lead. Here's Hornaday challenging Compton for second.
A lot of give and take right now. These cars, like we said earlier, very slippery racetrack. These guys know that. Trying to get a couple laps on their tires, get everything up to temperature.
Ron Hornaday and Richard Childress's 2-car sliding through into the runner-up spot. Stacy Compton falling back to 3rd. Brian Vickers slides out 4th, and Mike Bliss, driving for Joe Gibbs, holds out the 5th spot.
Already see a couple lines there. You know, watching some of these cars in practice, I still think you want to be on the bottom, and obviously that 25 car with the last couple of races he had in Kentucky and Chicago with that car, he's going to be difficult.
Blue and green car there, 37 machine. That's David Green, the NASCAR Busch Series championship leader. Started the race in 11th spot. He's picked up 2 positions now, just took 9th away from his teammate. Behind him, Joey Clanton, the rookie driver. That is David's teammate. And here comes Scott Wimmer. 23 cars, started 16th. He's moving forward. Up to 12th. Scott Wimmer does not historically qualify well, but he races much better than that. And now for 3rd place, Brian Vickers in the 5, taking a shot at Stacy Compton. Vickers, 3rd place driver in the NASCAR Busch Series championship, 19 years old. Just a kid, but got a lot of talent.
Well, Stacy Compton really hung tight up there on that outside line. I'm surprised at that.
I talked with Stacy in the garage area earlier this morning. He told me he really felt like they had a good car and a great shot at getting to victory lane today. 59.
Another guy that thinks he's got a good car is right behind those 2 battling is Mike Bliss. He was real happy with his car yesterday.
This is still the race for 3rd position. And here comes Casey Kane in the 38 up to challenge Mike Bliss. Make this a nice little 4-way fight for a spot. Here's the gap from Ron Hornaday in 2nd. Back to that side-by-side race for 3rd. You know, that what drivers really love about this racetrack, Wally, it's a lot of the same thing they say about Richmond on the Winston Cup side of things. 2 lanes of racing equally as fast.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously with Vickers and Stacy Compton going at it side by side for the last 4 or 5 laps, it's been pretty even.
Got something on the 59 car, Ralph?
Yeah, Alan, I spoke to Stacy this morning, and he told me, he said, we really have hit upon something the last couple of weeks. They've done a lot of work on this car, and we really finally figured out the tires, the Goodyear Eagles that they're running. They made some air pressure adjustments and then adjusted the chassis to the air pressures, and he said that has made a tremendous difference in how this car runs. Plus, they've had some time in the wind tunnel in the body, and they finally feel like they've got a handle on that as well. So the whole package has finally come together for Stacy Compton, and it's showing on the racetrack.
And the race for 5th continues with Casey Kane finally nosing out in front of Mike Bliss, and here comes Johnny Sauter in the 21 car up behind them. Sauter splits his time between 2 cars on the circuit. If you were with us on TNT last Saturday, he was driving the 43 car for Kerry Agajanian and rocketed up through the field, took the lead, and then had things go wrong. He wound up in the garage with an engine failure. But at the end of that race, NASCAR took the tires from that 43 car for inspection. I spoke with NASCAR Busch Series director Brian Dehart about that. He said they took those tires back to NASCAR's Research and Development Center in North Carolina, found nothing wrong with them, and then have sent them on to a lab for chemical analysis just to be sure.
Yep.
First guy I ran into on Sunday morning in New Hampshire was Kerry Agostini. He grabbed me and went, they're not going to find anything wrong with those tires.
Yeah. Look a little farther back. Scott Wimmer now working on David Stremme in the one car to try and pick up a spot. This is the race for 11th and 12th. And you're looking ahead from Shane Meal's view at that battle.
Boy, listen how easy he gets after the throttle. That's because it's slippery. Real smooth with the throttle. See how he just picks it up. He's not slamming the gas pedal down, because if he slammed the gas pedal down right now, probably get sideways and wind up in the fence.
See, the lead cars have already begun putting some of the slower machines a lap down. 61 is Justin Ashburn, who has fallen behind already. So Stremme in the 1 and Wimmer in the 23, hanging in just outside the top 10 right now, and looking to gain some spots farther forward. That one car, David Stremme, what an impressive young man he's been so far. 26 years old from South Bend, Indiana. Last season was running the ASA circuit. He was the Rookie of the Year on the ASA short track circuit last year. He's on the development program for Chip Ganassi, the Winston Cup team owner. And in just a handful of starts this season, 8 races, he's got 5 top 10 finishes.
Yep, and it helps he's with a very good team. That yellow team is a very strong team. It has been in the past. So what an opportunity for a young guy to come in and get in great equipment.
Speaking of young guys, Shane Meal right there in the 48, trying to find some running room underneath Scott Wimmer. How about David Stremme, Mark?
Alan, he's a guy who grew up around racing. His whole family is involved in it. I wanted to ask Wally, you probably raced against your dad, but David Stremme grew up racing against his mom. And that's how he, got his aggressive style. I wonder if Wally ever had the same experience.
I haven't. I've raced against my wife.
Yeah?
She whipped up on me pretty good.
That's why
not my mom.
That's why you stopped racing against her, right?
That's right. A lot more peaceful on the racetrack and at home.
So this going on from 11th position on back. Up front, it's been all Hamilton Jr. so far. The U.S. Marine Corps machine out in front of second place Ron Hornaday by 1.3 seconds here at Pikes Peak. If you log on to NBCSports.com, Benny Parsons has got some email questions of yours that he's answering, plus a preview of tomorrow's Winston Cup race at Pocono. You'll also find a little feature from moi on why fuel mileage has become a greater factor in the outcome of Winston Cup races. NBCSports.com. Bobby Hamilton Jr. leading the Trimspa Dream Body 250 here at Pikes Peak International Raceway.
And see where he's got those left side tires? He's going to be a hard car to beat. There's 2 guys going at it.
Same place Ashton Lewis has got him.
Right.
Right on the white line. Lewis in that 46 has moved up from 9th starting spot to 7th, and he's trying to take 6th away from Casey Kane in the 38. There's the patch.
These guys are very loose right now. You can tell by when they're getting on the throttle. If they're getting on the throttle that easy, their race cars are loose.
Now here's the race for second place. Ron Hornaday's been bumped back a couple of positions during the break a moment ago. And Stacy Compton sliding around Brian Vickers there as they race for that spot. Talk about that pass a minute ago on Ron Hornaday. Brian Vickers was the aggressor and Hornaday was the aggressee.
Well, it looks like Hornaday got out of shape there. He got loose and he had to jump back off the throttle. And Vickers was all over him at the time. But these 2 cars right here look like they may be gaining a little bit on the 25 car of Bobby Hamilton Jr. Now, if they start racing each other, obviously they're going to slow down a little bit. But when they got behind single file there, they were picking a little bit up, not much.
Vickers trying to get that second spot away from Stacy Compton. Compton able to run in just a little bit harder into the corner in that outside lane. And he holds him off for now. Ralph, we're hearing that word loose a lot up on the racetrack. Drivers' radios we're hearing. How about down in the garage on pit road?
Alan, it's all up and down pit road right now. Everybody on the radio talking about how loose the car is. And Wally, this is one of the trickiest times of the race, I would think, for the crew chief, because you've got to get your driver into a rhythm that's going to be quick, but not going to abuse the car. And we're hearing a lot of that going back and forth now. Crew chief's talking to the drivers, find that rhythm and stay there.
Yeah, you're right, Ralph. But what the crew chief's telling these guys right now is just, okay, we're going to fix it when you come in for a pit stop. You've got to ride it out. So just find your rhythm, be smooth, and just hang on. Because there's nothing else you can do until you get into the pits to make an adjustment. You've got to live with it, and you don't want to come in too early, because a lot of times you come in too early, that's going to really mess things up. So you just have to calm down and know everybody else is going through the same thing.
And Vickers persistent in his effort to get underneath Compton, but just not able to complete the pass. Mark, what do you got?
Well, Jason Keller, you talk about a loose condition. A number of these guys are loose off. He doesn't feel like he has any grip in the rear tires at all. He is begging his crew chief, Steve Addington. I just talked to him. He is begging him, find a way to get me more grip across the board in the back. He said, I can't go any farther up than I am right now. He's currently running 19th.
Working on Kevin Grubb there for a spot is Jason Keller. He's really fallen off. Well, actually, I say that. He started in the back with the engine change, right. So he's picked his way up through, but not maybe as quick as he would have hoped.
And you know, when you're loose and you're trying to pass guys, that's even worse, because, you know, when you're out there by yourself, you've got a little bit of racetrack to work with. But when you've got a car right next to you and you're trying to pass them and you're trying to get on the gas, that even makes the car more loose.
Now, let's talk about something else that plays in here, too. Mark touched on it in our opening, Wally. This race historically has not seen the caution flag waved many times. Last year, only 2 yellow flags in the race. The last of them was at lap 30. The year before, 1 caution flag in the race. When your car's not handling right, can you risk taking the time on a green flag pit stop to fix it?
No. Not with what you just told me you can't. You know, if the race goes green and you come in and you're going to get off that sequence, go a lap down right off the bat. Nope. Now, if you get lapped right now, you may as well come in and try to make a change. But it's a tough call. Normally, they're going to try to keep the guys out there as long as possible.
That was 17th place that Jason Keller just picked up on Kevin Grubb. So Keller continuing to try and pick his way toward the 4.
And Vickers has been working on him. I mean, yeah. And Stacy Compton, that 59 car, has been tough. He's not letting them by. You know, you would think after about 15 or 20 laps, Stacy might just say, I'll let him go, and maybe we won't lose so much time racing against Bobby Hamilton Jr., but he's hanging tough. See him taking a look at the bottom. Now Stacy should be able to get in a little bit better because he's on the high line, so he'll take the advantage here. If Vickers can pick up the throttle and stay on the throttle, he can complete the pass.
Oh, trouble. Turn 4. Oh, Justin Ashburn. Excuse me, that's Larry Gunselman, and Brian Vickers just clobbered him. The other car involved is Jeremy Clements in the 71 car, a little farther up the track. Caution is out for the first time in the race. And Brian Vickers racing for second spot. One of the championship contenders is going to be in some deep trouble here. And here's the leader, Hamilton Jr., and it happened right in front of him. That's Clements in the 71.
All by himself.
First around.
Now,
Gunselman got down on the apron trying to avoid the accident. Oh.
I think Vickers just didn't know which way to go. Thought the car was going to slide back up the racetrack out of the way.
Oh, boy. So caution is out, and here come all the leaders onto pit road.
Give me tires.
Stops coming at lap 31. Hamilton Jr., Compton, and Hornaday, the top three coming in. Ralph?
45 miles an hour down pit road today, Alan. They're going to take tires on this car. He radioed in. Harold Hawley asked him, how's the car? Bobby said, it's great. So all they're going to do is change tires. Kyle Petty, the front tire changer, going to work on this car. One tire gets loose. NASCAR official getting that for them. They're going to get the tires changed, completed, and send it back underway. The only car in the field not complaining about its setup.
A couple others get out ahead of him. Compton and Hornaday off pit road first. It's Paul Menard, Andy Petrie Racing, heading back out after his service.
Looks like they had to push him off. The car must have stalled during the pit stop because I saw the crew push him away.
Johnny Sauter out fifth in Richard Childress's 21 car. Cleanup continues inside turn 4. Three-car accident that swept up the third-place driver in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship, Brian Vickers. Under caution here at Pikes Peak.
USA Today is the place for a comprehensive look at motorsports. Get all the latest results, standings, and features to keep you up to date with your favorite teams and drivers.
Still under caution here at Pikes Peak International Raceway. First one of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 after 3 cars were involved in an accident in turn 4, including Brian Vickers, third place man in the championship. Little play for points there on behalf of the second place man in the standings, huh, Mark?
Absolutely right, Alan. Scott Riggs hung out a few extra laps before he made his pit stop. His crew chief is Doug Randolph. Doug, was that the sole reason you guys stayed out?
Well, not the sole reason. Nesquik car's been pretty loose. Started the race. You know, we had happy hour last night. The temperature is a lot different, so we're real loose today. We knew we had to make some major adjustments to have a chance to win the race. So we stayed out, led a lap, tried to get our 5 points, and then came in and made some big adjustments.
Those adjustments down on the track bar, rubber out of the right rear. They unhooked the rear bar as well. Back to Ralph Shaheen.
Well, Mark, the 2 car of Ron Hornaday was very, very loose out there in that first run and started slipping back a little bit. They did put 2 rounds up on the track bar and put 4 tires on the AC Delco number 2. So Hornaday, hoping that that's going to make his car much better. He got out of the pits pretty fast and just made his way up towards the front again, Alan.
On track right now, the leader is Jason Schuler. He has not stopped under this caution flag. Off pit road, Stacy Compton and Ron Hornaday beat Bobby Hamilton Jr. out of the pits. They will hold second and third positions with Hamilton Jr. back to fourth. Still cleaning up inside turn 4. We'll take a break and come back for the restart. NASCAR on NBC from Pikes Peak International Raceway near Colorado Springs with the Trimspa Dream Body 250 for the NASCAR Busch Series. You see down inside turn 4, they're still cleaning up, so we remain under caution. Check your mailbox for a specially marked Valpak envelope and register for a chance to win a VIP race weekend, including a meet and greet with Richard Petty, courtesy of Valpak and TNT. Fairly big mess down inside turn 4. You can see they're having some trouble getting the Larry Gunselman car off the track, although they have already removed Brian Vickers' machine and the Jeremy Clements car. Bobby Hamilton Jr. off pit road in the 4th position, and right behind him Mike Bliss off pit road running 5th.
Hey, these guys get together. Weren't they together recently?
I feel
somewhere?
a flashback coming on. Oh, like last Saturday in New Hampshire?
That's what it was.
Yeah. Hamilton Jr. and Bliss racing for a spot. They bang, they clunk, they clang, and then off turn 4,
they crunched.
Bliss ends up in the inside wall. They had greatly opposed viewpoints on what happened in that last contact.
And that's surprising.
Bliss saying that basically Hamilton Jr. took him out and wrecked him, and Hamilton Jr. saying his car just pushed up and off he went into Bliss. So,
okay,
they're going to have their opposing viewpoints on what happened, and neither guy's going to come off that. But now you got to come back to the racetrack next week, and you got to race with the guy.
Well,
how's it factor in?
Well, here's how it factors in. And this is the perfect opportunity. They're right together when the green flag drops. You know right away if the guy's going to mess with you. You know, so if you had an incident with him a week or 5 weeks or whatever it was before, when you start racing, if you're following that guy and he starts blocking or he starts doing stuff, you go, uh-oh, now we're going to have a problem. But if you just go to racing clean and you forget about it, then really it's forgotten about. So it just depends on how the other guy reacts.
Hornaday, he's a racer. As simple as that. I mean, you donut him, he's going to donut you back. I mean, I've raced against Ron forever. I mean, he's just he's a hard head racer, and I mean that's why nobody minds racing with him, getting in there side by side with him. The deal with Bliss, that was just a racing deal. I mean, he took it to another level, you know, as far as the way he handled his comments, but that's Bliss. I mean, you've seen it before, you've heard it before.
You know, it obviously, right when you get out of a race car, you're hot if you've gotten wrecked or you think somebody wrecked you. And I think probably, you know, that first shot that we looked at, when I saw Bobby in the first replay that we showed, I went, it looks like that was Bobby's fault. But then when I saw the helicopter shot, the overhead shot, then I said, well, you know what? That doesn't look like it was Bobby's fault. You know, that was a either way deal. So I think you have to look at the replay before you open your mouth sometimes. But in the heat of the moment, sometimes it's nice to let off a little steam.
Give us something fun to watch here when we go back racing. All right. Not having fun today. Brian Vickers, third place man in the championship. He's with Ralph.
Well, Brian, you took a bit of a hit out there, but it looks like you're physically okay. But the points chase probably took a bigger hit for you. What happened?
Yeah, it really did. There's no place to go. Normally, that's usually what I'm pretty good at, is missing those deals. But we went down in the corner, and I saw the first guy spin. I checked up, and I was rolling down the track. It's real slick out there, so the brakes aren't really a whole lot of good. And the second guy spun, and he started to go low, and I went high, and then he started sliding back up the racetrack, and it just, I don't know, it's just one of those deals. I really hate it for the guys. We had an awesome car. You know, I mean, we had a really, really fast car. GMAC Chevy was awesome. And I know we was going to have good pit stops. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But it was a short day for us, and you know, it's going to hurt us in the points, but we're not out of it yet. It's a long year.
Unfortunately, you're done for the day, but we do have the rest of the race to see, and you're the one guy who can tell us what the track is truly like, because you were racing pretty hard with Stacy Compton. What can the rest of the guys expect out of this track today, do you think?
Glad to be of service. Glad to help you. You know, it's really slick. I mean, it is super slick out there. Really hard to pass. I worked on Stacy for a long time. We had a better car, and you know, it didn't work. But those guys, they're gonna. I mean, the track's slick. It's gonna wear tires out real quick, and you're not gonna see any no tire stops, 2 tire stops, I don't think.
All right, Brian. Sorry to see your day coming in early.
Brian Vickers will break a string of 7 consecutive top 10 finishes by getting caught up in an accident just 30 laps in here at Pikes Peak. NBC Sports coverage of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 is brought to you by Smooth Bush Beer and Easy Drinking Bush Light. Bush, the proud sponsor of the NASCAR Bush Series. And by Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar. Eating good in the neighborhood, Applebee's. Lengthy caution flag here at Pikes Peak International Raceway. 3-car accident up in turn 4 involving the third place man in the championship standings, Brian Vickers, along with Larry Gunselman and Jeremy Clements. All the drivers okay, but their cars are not.
These guys are hating life right here.
Paul Menard's team?
Yeah, they've been having to push that car to try to get it started after every time they've come in. This time they're just pushing it behind the wall.
Johnny Sauter's up to 6th place. He started 8th. Mark, what's his team saying?
Alan, he got a little bit lucky, that's what they're saying, because he was just barely able to squeeze by that incident. His crew chief is Butch Hilton. How is the car? What did you do to make it better?
We were extremely tight there that first run. We kind of didn't think that was going to happen. I was a little surprised, so we took a bunch of wedge out of the car and worked on the tire pressures a little bit. We can make it from here on one more stop, we think. Just have to see if we get the car much better. We might not. Hopefully the Payday Chevy will be a little freer on this run.
You pitted on lap 31. When will you pit again to try to make it the rest of the way?
I think we could go to 141 or 142 right now, so we'll see.
All right, there's the word from Butch Hilton.
Well, there's one guy that was pushing.
How about this? Here's your championship leader going to top off the fuel here on 1 to go.
Huh? I'm surprised more guys didn't do that.
So
wow, well, they're making a little bit of an adjustment there, too.
Yeah, but the top off is the primary thing. Yeah. Scott Riggs also in 2nd place man in the championship. So we'll mark that down. Lap 44. These 2 guys top off and see if the extra 14 laps on fuel will make a difference. Half a lap for the restart, Ralph.
Larry Gunselman's come out of the medical center here. Larry, you okay? Took a bit of a hard hit out there.
Yeah, I'm all right. Hit my knee a little bit, but it seems to be all right.
What happened from where you were sitting?
Well, it looked like the 71 just got away from him. It was really, really slick down there in 3 and 4, and it got away from him, and I tried to turn down underneath him, and I got my car sideways and thought I had it corrected, and saw Brian Vickers coming, and apparently he couldn't get it turned down in time. He couldn't get away from running into me.
Back underway with Stacy Compton leading. Jason Schuler finally peeled off and pitted. Here comes Hornaday with the outside charge for the race lead.
Very good move. Hadn't quite pulled it off yet, but whoa! That was close. That was close. 59 drifted up the racetrack and just got in the left for a quarter panel run and a little bit loose.
So Hornaday, the 4th place man in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship, collects the bonus points for leading the lap. Using up a lot of racetrack behind him. Here's Jason Keller. Keller in 12th place. Shane Meal, Scott Wimmer racing there, 48-23. That's for 9th and 10th. And beginning to catch Hank Parker Jr. to try and make that a 3-way fight for position. Look at Meal right down on the white line. Excuse me, coming through.
See ya.
It's got to be a tough thing on Hank to come in on a one-off shot with a race team. Mike Skinner is going to drive this car next week at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Hi, welcome aboard. You've got one race. Thank you very much.
Hey, beats sitting home. Beats, I mean, you know, I think he's real happy for the opportunity. He's probably loving it that he's back in a race car. And yeah, it is tough because it's hard to get with the team and not know what they're used to, or the communication thing's the biggest thing. The driver has to try to communicate. The crew's trying to understand what the driver wants. Yes, it's hard for one race deal, but still, beats sitting on the couch.
Stacy Compton trying to put some pressure on Ron Hornaday for the lead. And Hamilton Jr. trying to close in. Last time by through turn 4, Compton made a big run up behind Hornaday in the high lane, but Hornaday was there. He had no place to go. This time he tries the bottom side.
Now Hornaday's car looks like it's working better up in the high line. He's been doing that since the start of the race, especially up in 3 and 4. Here you see 1 and 2. He's up high.
How about the leader, Ralph?
Alan, Ron Hornaday's always been known as a champion with a tremendous amount of focus, and he really showed what he was made of yesterday during qualifying. I interviewed him just before he was about to roll out, and he mentioned to me that his daughter Candace had become very ill, and his wife had rushed out of the racetrack to get home. And here's Ron Hornaday strapped into the car and has to go out and qualify. How well did he do? Well, he put it on the provisional pole. It turns out we thought that Candace was suffering from a ruptured appendix. Turns out it was something else. She's going to be okay. But Ron Hornaday showed what a champion is all about by running as strong as he possibly could. He told me this morning, as soon as I got out of the car to that qualifying lap, like a giant sigh, the emotion of Candace being ill swept back over his body, and he was covered in goosebumps. Today, he's racing, hoping his daughter's getting better, but he's chasing a championship.
Ooh, Compton almost sliding up into him there.
Well, Stacy's keeps trying to make a run, getting into the corner, and he gets through the center, and he gets through the center okay, but he's sliding up that racetrack. Fortunately, Hornaday, I think, has an idea that he's doing that, and he's moving a little bit higher up in the corner. Yeah, but yeah.
Compton got to play defense now. Here comes Hamilton Jr. with the charge. And Mike Bliss. Great little 4-way fight for the lead. Look at it, all over the racetrack. Yeah. Isn't that great?
Wow, that's close racing there.
Hornaday, Compton, Hamilton Jr., Bliss. The top 4.
You just got to look at Hamilton's car, though, and say, you know what? It's just a matter of time before he passes these guys. His car is so strong on the bottom of the racetrack.
How about Mike Bliss, Mark?
Alan, he has had a belly full of bad luck this year. 6 DNFs, 5 accidents, 1 with an engine. He's been wrecked by lap cars. He's been wrecked running up front. He's had races taken away running out of gas on the very last lap with a huge lead, which happened at Gateway. But this racetrack could be the turnaround. A year ago, he won his first Craftsman Truck Series race of the season here at Pikes Peak. He then used that to propel him to the championship.
Yeah, I spoke with Joe Gibbs, the team owner of that 20 car this morning down in the garage, and Joe said, it's not like we're doing anything wrong, but we're just not getting the results we should be getting. They're hoping for better today. Well, you got to give Compton credit for persistence.
Oh, yeah. He's working them. Man, it looks like Ron Hornaday parks up in the middle of the corner. But he's got that run off of the corners. He's got all the momentum, keeping that car rolling. The other guys that are working the bottom of the racetrack, they're trying to stay down, and they're scrubbing off a little bit more speed, but
Hornaday, one win already this season for him. That was at the Nazareth, Pennsylvania mile track back in mid-May. 3 top 5 finishes the last 5 races. He finished 3rd, 4th, and 4th at Kentucky, Milwaukee, and Daytona Beach, respectively. He has won here before in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And get this, for Ron Hornaday, racing here in both the NASCAR Busch Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, he's never finished outside the top 10 in a race at this speedway.
well, liking a racetrack is obviously and definitely an advantage.
Checking back on the race for 7th place. 48 car, the yellow machine left of the screen is Shane Meal. Scott Wimmer next in line, yellow and orange 23. Then David Stremme, Jason Keller, and Ashton Lewis. So that's 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Remember we heard the report on Keller's car earlier that he was lacking grip everywhere.
Looks like they may have fixed it.
And up front, another bid for the lead by Stacy Compton. Rats foiled again.
Yeah, 3 different lines right there. Got Hamilton on the white line on the bottom. Stacy's running right about the middle, and Hornaday is way up high.
So when you're Compton and you keep trying and trying and trying, are you getting frustrated or are you having fun?
Oh yeah, now you're having fun, but I think eventually you got to try to get that front bumper on his rear bumper and just at least try to take the air off getting into the corner, just so he makes one little slip.
Hamilton Jr. not quite able to stick to Compton's inside and put a move on there for 2nd place. I don't think there's any question Hamilton Jr. in that 25 has been the hottest driver on the circuit as of late. Couple of wins, all coming within the last month and a half or so. Kentucky Motor Speedway, Chicagoland Speedway. Hamilton Jr. has not only gone to victory lane, but he's had clearly the best car in the field on those nights. Though at Kentucky, he had to have some late race heroics to overcome another driver to get the checkered flag. Hamilton Jr. he's been colorful.
Here we go. Here we go. And it happened.
Bliss with the payback.
It happened.
And Hamilton Jr. into the outside wall.
Now the
caution
fireworks
flag
begin.
is out. Yellow flag number 2 here at Pikes Peak. And Bobby Hamilton Jr., the 6th place man in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship, has got some work to do back in the garage with that car.
You think it was hot in that car a lap ago? I guarantee the temperature's double right now.
Here we go, racing for 3rd spot.
Be interesting to see what the boys in the booth next to us think about that replay.
NASCAR race control. Okay. Well, there'll be 2 sides to that story.
Oh, there always is. Always 2 sides.
The guy that ended up in the wall will say, I got taken out. And the guy that hit him said he must have lifted off the gas or slipped.
One of them racing deals.
Yep. Ouch. Looking back from Ron Hornaday.
Normally when I pay you back, I wait at least 3 or 4 weeks in the go-kart track.
When you pay me back, it's big. Little right front damage there on the Bliss car. Fender wrinkled in. Only leaders pitting here under this caution: Scott Riggs, Hank Parker Jr., and Kevin Grubb are in, along with Coy Gibbs. And so we're under caution for the second time here at Pikes Peak International Raceway. Bobby Hamilton Jr. and Mike Bliss have tangled again. This time Hamilton Jr. has gotten the bad end of it. NASCAR on NBC, live at Pikes Peak International Raceway near Colorado Springs, where the Trimspa Dream Body 250 has just taken an interesting turn. We call our moving racing soap opera As the Wheel Turns. Here's the next chapter. Ralph.
Well, and with Bobby Hamilton Jr. has just crawled out of his Marines car. Bobby, was that a payback or was that just racing?
Oh, I'm sure he's going to say it's racing, but that's the type of class person you're dealing with. So you just go on from here, try to get the Marines car back out outside, get some points, and NASCAR take care of us. They had us both in the trailer today talking about it, and it's like I was the only one listening. But I mean, that's NASCAR made this far because they let stupid stuff go. So they'll take care of it, and we'll get our stuff back out there and do our deal.
Will you carry this on to the next round, or in your mind does it end here because of what NASCAR said to you this morning?
I thought it was over after New Hampshire. I mean, like I said, everybody knows what I'm about with that race. I don't wreck people. But like I said, you're definitely with a different, lower class than most. So you got to expect that. I should have expected him when he's behind me. But we'll go on from here. And as far as I'm concerned, I thought it was dropped earlier. But like I said, NASCAR will take care of it.
That's a good way of going about it. Obviously, if they've been talked to today in the truck, then they should have been trying to behave themselves at least for a race or two. So Bobby's going about it the right way. Just let NASCAR handle it. And, obviously he doesn't have to be happy about it.
Yeah, and he's obviously not.
But, like we talked earlier, you kind of wait for that coming. When you come back to the next race and you get with that guy at the racetrack, all the cards are dealt, and you just see what happens. And obviously it wasn't over.
You saw Shane Meal falling back through the field. He was 7th. He's fallen back now. And we'll see if we can get an update on what's happening there. Leader is Ron Hornaday. 2nd is Stacy Compton. Mike Bliss is 3rd. 4th is Johnny Sauter. This is the race for 5th. Casey Kane in the 38. Scott Wimmer in the 23. By the way, Shane Meal fell back to 11th. But seems to be back up to speed now, so he must have just got shuffled out of line. Scott Wimmer, 23, Wisconsin native, was back up in Wisconsin this Tuesday night along with Matt Kenseth and Kurt Busch and Dick Trickle and a couple of others running the Slinger Nationals, big short track race up there. I saw Scott in the garage. I said, how'd you do? He said, blew up. Kenseth blew up. Busch crashed. He said, the big returning heroes, huh? Up front. Here's a bid for the lead by Stacy Compton.
Oh. Stacy cannot keep that car down in the center of the corner. It might cost him 2nd spot.
Mike Bliss with a roll underneath him in the 20. But
this racetrack is tough. When you look at turn 1, how you got to enter turn 1, you really have to arc this place. So when you're down on the bottom, it's real difficult to gain on the guy up on top because you almost have to turn the car an extra time.
1st, 2nd, and 3rd there. Here's the race for 4th. Casey Kane diving underneath to grab that spot from Johnny Sauter. Farther back, 7th and 8th. Jason Keller trying to pick up a spot in the 57 on David Stremme. And your championship leader, David Green, creeping into the picture now. Remember, Green topped off the fuel back at lap 44. And he's moved back up to 10th spot in that 37 car. And we got a lot of different agendas going on out here today.
Yeah, we do.
Good race for the lead. Some of the championship contenders in trouble. Some of them topping off and playing the fuel strategy game. And here's that race for 2nd continuing as Mike Bliss tries to find a way underneath Stacy Compton. '59 car Compton figured to be one of the championship contenders entering this season, but it's been anything but. He is 12th in the standings right now, and his best finishes this season, a couple of 4th place runs. They've run well, but it seems like the last segment of these races, they run into a problem. A mechanical problem, gets swept up in a crash. The adjustment they make on the last pit stop doesn't agree with the car. Something has just kind of kept them from contending for wins at the end of the day.
Yeah, they haven't capitalized on them running good, like you say, from the middle the start, the middle of the race, and then the end of the race. That's what matters the most.
Stacy about to re-up with this team for 2004.
But their cars have been fast. I mean, they're always fast.
Richard Childress engines. And Casey Kane starting to creep into this mix here. That black 38 car.
Bliss might have enough on him this time. Nope.
Boy, it looks like the guy on the bottom just has to be, he just has to tiptoe going into that corner.
You really do. Like I said, the way you get into these corners is so if you run too hard getting in, your car slides up, and if it slides up and you've got a car on the outside, then there's trouble. So you really are tiptoeing right here. Now you're trying to grab the throttle just a little bit, and you want to stand on the gas, but you can't, or the car gets sideways, just like what Mike did right there. Car fishtailed just a little bit. And that's when it gets frustrating.
Take me inside that 20 car for a minute. You've just been involved with something on the racetrack you know is controversial. Whether it was intentional or not, you know it's controversial. You able to put that out of your mind quickly and go back racing?
Yes, right now you are. When it's green, you definitely are. I mean, he's obviously thinking about it during the caution, but when you're racing right now, like these guys are going at each other, you're not thinking about anything else other than what you're doing inside that race car. Especially at a place like this right now where you're slipping and sliding all over the place. You're trying to pass the guy, and then you've got guys that are trying to pass you on the outside like they're doing a Bliss right now. He slipped just a little bit, got the car loose off of 2, and lost a car length to Casey Kane.
23 car joining the race, Scott Wimmer. Up from 16th starting spot. He's running 5th and trying to take 4th away from Bliss. Wimmer, another guy who struggled this season for results. So hot at the end of last season, winning those 4 races in the final stretch of 2002. Change in the crew chief position. It's just taken he and his new crew chief some time. But Scott told me he really feels like they're poised for another great second half run, just like he had at the end of last season. Casey Kane in that 38, 23-year-old from Enumclaw, Washington, has run this track before in a USAC midget. He said the place looked bigger then. Midget quite a bit smaller a race car than these NASCAR Busch Series machines.
Oh, I tell you what, they're running awfully close to each other right now. And Casey Kane doesn't want to get too close to the 59 car getting in the corner. He's going to get loose.
Oh, trouble.
Or he's going to get the 59 loose.
Compton with the slide for life. Nice just caught the fender there coming back around. Caution flag is out. You were saying?
I thought they were running a little too close.
Third yellow flag of the race. Lap number 81 as Ron Hornaday brings the field back to the caution flag. So second place they were racing for, and it went wrong. And another potential contender for the win, or 2, have run into some problems here at Pikes Peak.
And here we'll talk about, you know, when you're running that close to a guy on a racetrack that's this slick, there's no room for error. You go down to turn 1. I mean, it's just got to give guys a little bit more room than that.
Now it's been 50 laps since the leaders last pitted. We got to see everybody in here.
Yeah. If I got tires I can put on, I'm coming in.
Oh, Jason Keller, nice job.
Yeah, very nice.
Glove save and a beauty. Compton's got some damage to be fixed, and here come all the leaders onto pit road for stops at the conclusion of lap 81 and the beginning of lap 82.
Mark, Scott Wimmer is in. They're going to take on 4 tires, a slight chassis adjustment, but they're very happy with this race car now. Quickly around the right side, they've swung back to the left side. A real nice-looking pit stop for Scott Wimmer. Let's go to Ralph Shaheen.
Well, Ron Hornaday's crew wanted to tighten the car up a little bit. He vetoed that and said, no, it's fine, leave it alone. So all they're going to do is change tires. He's got a little bit of body damage to the back, but that's it. Stacy Compton, meanwhile, is getting in his service as well. They're changing tires all the way around. A little bit of damage to the nose of that car, so they're working on that as well and get Stacy underway.
Hank Parker Jr. first off pit road, but a little strategy played there by the 7 car. We'll reset the running order for you when we come back to Pikes Peak International Raceway. Under caution for the 3rd time in the race, you're watching NASCAR on NBC. Time for the Wendy's race menu. No Frosties on this, but a lot of racing. Tomorrow, NASCAR Winston Cup Racing from Pocono, the Pennsylvania 500. TNT at 12:30 Eastern Time, starting with Discover Card Countdown to Green. Then the Brickyard 400, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, NBC, Sunday, August 3rd. Going to be a great weekend there in Indianapolis. Follow the race for the championship, NBC and TNT. Hank Parker Jr. is the leader. How'd he get that top spot, Mark?
Well, for one thing, he didn't change any tires, Alan. They just filled it up with gas. They put a little bit of wedge in that Kleenex Chevrolet, but that's all they did. No tires and gas. That gave them the track position they have right now.
Well, I watched that 7 car go backwards quickly once they get the green.
Well, let's find out. Here they come.
You know, he just spun the tires right there, and Hornaday almost ran him over.
Missed a restart. Ron Hornaday cleanly by into the lead. Now Ashton Lewis going to tuck up underneath of Parker Jr. for second.
46 car take 2 or 4 tires?
We'll check. Might have taken none. So Hornaday now back in the lead, just a mile after the restart. Got a good jump on Hank Parker Jr.
Well, like I said, I think Hank may have spun the tires here. And when you're making a restart on old tires and the guys behind you have new tires, you got to be careful of that. Hot, slick tires.
So Hornaday leads. Ashton Lewis is second. Parker Jr. is racing Mike Bliss for third. Fifth is Jason Keller. Then David Green and Scott Wimmer right behind them.
Well, Jason Keller's car looks like it's coming on.
No, you just have to wait on that gas.
Yeah.
Just like your.
That's with new tires.
Yeah.
So.
And confirmation from pit road, the 46 car got 2 tires.
Okay.
Ashton Lewis. So there you go. How about this for third place? Jason Keller. He's got it rolling up through the pack right now. And there's your championship leader, David Green, in the green and blue 37. Getting into the mix. Oh, by the way, the 20 there, Mike Bliss, he and Bobby Hamilton Jr. have been called to a meeting in the big blue trailer at race's conclusion.
They're going to have to start paying rent. They keep going back to that trailer.
And we're going to a short track next week with the Busch Series. The half-mile Indianapolis Raceway Park, TNT, next Saturday night.
David taking a look under Mike Bliss. Now he's taking a better look.
That'll be for 6th place. So the leaders all stopped there at lap 81.
Uh-oh, here comes a math lesson, I can tell.
Giving them 110 to 115 laps on fuel. That's 196. So everybody should be good on one more stop for fuel from there. So the economy thing just might have been taken out of the equation here today.
Well, that'd be good.
The way they've been racing today, it'd be great to see them fight it out to the finish, because there's been some good stuff today. 6th place you're watching here, David Green trying to take the spot away from Mike Bliss. Just behind them, Johnny Sauter. Just ahead of them, Hank Parker Jr. And this is all going on about 2 seconds behind leader Ron Hornaday. There's the leader. Looking back behind him, the race for second starting to heat up a little bit, as Jason Keller has run down Ashton Lewis. Jason Keller in the 57. 1 win so far this season. That was at the Milwaukee Mile last weekend of June. Very disappointing for him that he's only had 1 win so far this season. Another guy figured to be one of the favorites during the year.
And he just cleared 2nd spot.
How about 3 wide involving your championship leader?
How about no?
Oh, it was.
Don't do that.
Give me some, yeah. So David Green by Mike Bliss. 6th place he picks up. Now he works on Parker Jr. for 5th. David Stremme, Johnny Sauter, all joining that group. talk about David Green, your championship leader. It's one thing if you're racing one guy for the title, and you can gauge how aggressive you'll be by where he's at. You know, if he were racing Hamilton Jr. for the title, Hamilton Jr.'s had a problem. He can change what he's doing based on that. But when there are 6 guys you're racing for the championship, you've really just got to go.
Yeah, you can't even think about the 1 or 2 guys that you're racing against. Like you said, there's so many guys you're racing against. You have to go after them every single weekend. Gobble up every point you can.
Johnny Sauter, 21. And the one of David Stremme fighting for the spot. As they run, David Green would hang on to the NASCAR Busch Series championship lead, but Ron Hornaday would slide around Riggs for second. And Vickers will take a 2-spot hit. Remember, Brian Vickers involved in a crash back at lap 30, and his car is in the garage area and done for the day.
Bliss's car looks awfully loose right there.
Change for third. Scott Wimmer in the 23 just slipped around Ashton Lewis. So Wimmer continuing to charge toward the front. I wonder how much the right front fender damage that Bliss got in that dust up with Hamilton Jr. is affecting him.
Looks like they repaired a little bit of it. Doesn't look too bad right there. I can tell watching him getting off the corners, looks like the car's real loose when he gets on the throttle.
Sixth, 7th, 8th, 9th, and Scott Riggs joining in 10th in the yellow car. Number 10. So a 5-way fight here for 6th place on down.
Inside here, inside. By itself. One back to the stand on the...
Tell you what, for having no tires against these guys that all have the fresher tires, Parker Jr.'s hanging in there.
Yeah, I think it's going to take, though. I mean, I think once these guys run about 10 or 15 laps, that's when the tires are really going to get the best, and they're about there right now.
Hang on, Mike. Somebody's inside of you there. As Scott Riggs steams on through to try and pick up a spot. Riggs entering the day second in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship. Had a problem in New Hampshire last week that dropped him a number of spots and cost him a great deal of ground. Well, a great deal. It dropped him from the lead to second in the championship. About a 40 and change point swing there. Went on a pit stop. The crew put the left front tire on the right front by mistake. Up front, it's all Ron Hornaday. Driving for Richard Childress. Hornaday looking for his 2nd win of 2003 and hoping to gain a little ground on David Green in the race for the championship. During tomorrow's Winston Cup race from Pocono, you can experience more in-car camera action with NASCAR In-Car on In-Demand. You get in-car camera channels, virtual dashboards, real-time in-car data, and live team audio. You can order the package by calling 1-888-SPORTS-IN on digital cable. NASCAR on NBC at Pikes Peak International Raceway with the NASCAR Busch Series Trimspa Dream Body 250. We're coming up on halfway through the race. You're riding with the leader, Ron Hornaday, and it's time to take you through the field. Put our pit reporters to work on a sweltering Colorado afternoon. Ralph, you're up first.
Well, Ron Hornaday is our leader right now, Al. He's got a very, very solid car. He's running chassis number 34, which turns out to be one of his favorites. It ran top 10 at New Hampshire and Milwaukee earlier this year. Mark?
In the number 2 spot, Jason Keller. They took on 4 tires on that last pit stop, and right now, Jason said in clean air, they have the fastest car on the racetrack. He's feeling real confident. At some point, he can reel in Ron Hornaday. Back there in the 3rd spot, Scott Wimmer. I just talked to his crew chief, Chris Rice. He said they are real good. He doesn't feel like he's going to have to adjust that car at all the rest of the day. And in 4th, Ashton Lewis Jr., that last time in the pits, he took on 2 tires. He came in 9th. He's riding in the 4th spot right now. They were a little bit tight, so to loosen it up, again, they took on 2 tires. Ralph?
Well, David Green is the next car in line in the 37. He took on 4 tires, fuel, and 1 round down in the left rear. The next car is the number 1. That's David Stremme, who's currently running in 6th place. They took a rubber out of the right rear, made some air pressure adjustments, and put 4 tires in the car. He was very loose. Mark?
When you look at the 21 of Johnny Sauter right now, everybody else all day long basically talking about loose, loose, loose. They've got another problem. It's too tight. I just talked to his crew chief, Butch Hilton. He thinks they're going to have to make another major adjustment if they get the chance to get that car back into contention. In the 8th spot, Scott Riggs in the Nesquik Ford. He is still very loose. They're continuing to work on that race car. It's a brand new car, and they haven't found the combination yet after working on it, of course, overtime yesterday and in the race today. And in the 9th position right now, Hank Parker Jr. in that one-off race with the Kleenex Chevrolet. Wally Dallenbach talked earlier about communication being an issue. It could be for a new team, and it has been. Wally Rogers told me that he misunderstood Hank Parker Jr. early on about what the car was doing, and he tightened the car up way too much. Now he's having to loosen it up, and that's why they did not take on tires the last time in. And now in the 10th spot, Shane Neal. Right now he said, I am awesome. He loves the way the car's handling, but on a restart he said it just won't go. It takes him 4 or 5 laps to get up to what he feels is full song. Now back up to the booth.
All right, so there are your top 10 as they run now. We've got 19 cars on the lead lap, and Ron Hornaday holding off Jason Keller for the top spot by about 0.3 of a second. Let's continue going through the field. Ralph, how about Joey Clanton?
Well, that's 11th, Alan, and Joey's in the number 27. It was tight, then it was loose, but now they've been working on the number 27, and Joey's in pretty good position. The 12th car, actually running in 12th, is Stacy Compton. That car was very hot due to the impact over there when he was racing with Casey Kane. They've been working on it, trying to bring the temperature down, pulling tape off of the front of the car. But right now, the 59 of Stacy Compton is very hot. Running in 13th is Mike Bliss, the number 20 car, as you said already, called in the NASCAR trailer. They had a 15-second stop. They made an air pressure adjustment on the right side and went down 1 round on the track car with the number 20 car, Bliss. Behind him, Kevin Grubb, number 26, who's running in 14th. The big problem there is not with the handling of the car so much as the motor's getting pretty weak in that machine. They're a little worried right now that the engine might not survive all 250 laps here today at Pikes Peak. Casey Kane was also involved in that incident with Stacy Compton that we talked about in the 38 car. Now Casey's got a little bit of right side damage. For all intents and purposes, the car is pretty much okay. And don't forget, Casey's also got open wheel here experience here, running in midgets and Silver Crown cars. Rick Corelli is running in 16th. That's car number 4. Now Rick Corelli's making his 1,000th start in competition here today. He's having a pretty good run. They've taken 1 round out of the car. They've changed 2 tires on the last stop for Rick Corelli. And Tim Fedowa running in 17th. He needs a lot of forward bite to help get him up off the corner. Otherwise, he's pretty loose in the majority of the turns here today. Alan?
All right, there's your top 17. Coy Gibbs running in 18th. Driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, naturally. Still on the lead lap. Coy making his NASCAR Busch Series debut here at Pikes Peak. And final car on the lead lap is Clint Vaschaltz in the 90 car. Mark, Pikes Peak Hill Climb is where he's most noted for, but he's doing a good job today.
He has, Alan. He started in that 32nd spot, done a nice job running in the 19th position right now. Right now, he's tight in the center and tight off. He just really can't get to the gas, and that's the reason why he's struggling just a bit now. And just up ahead of him, of course, you mentioned Coy Gibbs, top challenger in the Ray Vestas rookie battle in that car number 18. He started 27th. They're a little bit loose right now. They pulled the rubber out of the right rear, hoping to improve the handling characteristics of that NBNA machine.
So you've heard about all of the lead lap machines in our Through the Field. Let the pit boys get a drink of water and get ready to regroup and go again. Ron Hornaday is out in front, approaching halfway here at Pikes Peak. Wednesday night at 8/7 Central on NBC. It's Race to the Altar. 8 couples compete for the wedding of their dreams. It could bring them together or tear them apart. Race to the Altar Wednesday night, 8/7 Central on NBC. Jason is working coming together on the racetrack. The top 2 in a race for the top spot. Ron Hornaday in the 2, Jason Keller in the 57. Now they're in a with some lap traffic.
Jason looks like he's a little bit better in 3 and 4, and Ron Hornaday in the 2 car looks like he's a little bit better in 1 and 2, so it's been a really good matchup.
Keller's had a couple of looks underneath Hornaday, not been able to complete the pass. Now Scott Wimmer's closing in from behind on the both of them to make it a 3-way fight for the top spot. Well, he's trying. He hasn't got it done. Ralph?
Well, we're with Ricky Myers, crew chief for Ron Hornaday. Well, Ricky, what do you think? You're finally getting a little bit of heat from the backside, but your car seems to be very strong. Can it survive?
Well, right now, Ron says the car's just a little bit loose, but he's working the high side real well. We're hoping we can hang on to it. The AC Delco Chevrolet's been great today. Ron's doing an excellent job. We know we got one more pit stop. We're just trying to figure out when that might be. But we just need to have another good pit stop. I think we got a shot at it.
So are we into a fuel strategy game yet?
Not yet, but it could be here in about 10 or 15 laps.
Mark Garrow?
Steve Addington's the crew chief for Jason Keller. Not too shabby. You start in the back, you're in the front less than half of the race.
Yeah, the car's good. I mean, we're just trying to make laps here and get to the end. I just want to say one thing. I appreciate Albertson's, Roundup Weather Max, and Bear Creek Suits. We've had a tough year, and they've stuck with us, and these guys that worked their butts off this weekend. Had motor problems. It was nothing to do with Yates. They give us great horsepower. We got a good one in there now. We'll race them for the win.
What's your strategy pit-wise the rest of the way?
I hope it stays green. We'll run it to the fuel lap and put some tires on it and go to the end. Race them for the win.
All right, well, Jason couldn't do anything with Hornaday. Now Wimmer's going to try.
Yep.
Lap traffic ahead.
Yeah, Ron Hornaday's doing a good job holding these guys off on that high line. It's hard to do.
The nose out front, but here comes Hornaday back on the high side.
And see, Jason gets behind any one of these guys, he's going to make them loose. If he gets behind the 2 car, he'll loosen him up. You know, really close.
Wow, look at that. That back end of that car just dancing around there on that 2. Well, not yet. When this racetrack opened in 1997, first NASCAR Busch Series race here in 1998, it drew rave reviews from the drivers just for the kind of competition you're seeing right now. 2 lanes just as fast, outside or inside. And the 3-way fly-in formation for the, whoa, a little slip with Hornaday there.
That's all it took right there. Just a little bit loose.
New leader, Scott Wimmer. First time all day he's been out in front. Started 16th. We'll see how long he's out front. Yeah, you heard Hornaday have to kind of jump out of the gas there when he tried to get into it.
Like Rockingham. Yeah. Reminds me of Rockingham, how you got to apply the throttle here, just like there's an egg underneath the gas pedal. You got to go down very, very gently.
We're just past halfway in this race. Temperatures outside are brutal. When we started the race, the temperature was 102 degrees. Now you've been inside this hot race car for, what, an hour and a half of competition. Talk to me about what these drivers are going through at this point in the day.
Well, I mean, it just really depends on how good a job your crew did or you did to prepare for this. You know, if you're hot in the cars, you definitely start thinking about it.
Whoa. Now, he was pointing Jason Keller to his inside when he was coming down into turn 1.
But, you know, it's difficult. If you get hot, like I said, it's hard to concentrate. You start thinking about the heat, and you stop thinking about what you're doing. Now, a lot of these guys like Hornaday, he's been around a long time, and you get adjusted to it. You know, you get used to being, you know, really hot in the race car, but it takes a lot to get air in these cars. Said I used to put an ice pack underneath my suit on my chest over my heart, and that seemed to do more than anything else I did. You say, well, you can blow air in on the driver. Well, it's 102 degrees outside, so you're blowing 100-degree air in your face from the outside of the car. So it's just something you really got to be conditioned for.
this out. Okay, so maybe that's what Hornaday was waving at Keller about.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was a no.
Yeah, don't do that again. Wimmer's gotten away from these two. They're racing for second place. Ralph, what you got?
Well, adding a little bit more onto the story of the conditioning aspect of it and talking to some of the drivers, and Wally, maybe you can go a little bit deeper on this too. They say here in a place like Colorado or California or Arizona where you have more of a dry heat, the sweat tends to help cool your body, whereas if you're racing in a place like Charlotte and Talladega, high humidity, sweat doesn't tend to cool you down as much as it will in a cool or a dry area like this.
Is that your experience?
Well, I think when it's hot, it's just hot. When you sweat, you sweat. I mean, you know.
You just never thought about it that deep.
No, really. That Ralph, you got me on that one.
Well, Keller's finally got Hornaday to pick up that second spot. Problem is, while they've been dicing side by side, the leader Wimmer has gotten 1 3/4 seconds clear of them. There's Wimmer, and there's your race for second. Mark, what's happening down your end of pit road?
As you talk about the heat, Alan, of course, as the race goes on, the toll on the body, of course, increases. NASCAR will later in this race allow the teams an extra man over the wall to try to help the driver out. That might be the ice pack that Wally was talking about. Several have some special coolers in there. They've been sucking on some Gatorade or cold water throughout the afternoon, but they'll be able to have an extra man go over the wall, ice water, and of course probably a bag of ice for some of these guys later on today.
Yeah, and that's a big help, Mark, because, you know, the way these cars are now, the way the window nets are, it used to be you could just throw an ice pack in the side window, or they put it on one of those poles and they try to hand it to you. But the window nets are so tight right now, and they take up so much of the window, you actually have to have somebody force it in the window to you. So that's it's a good move and very helpful this stage of the race.
Scott Wimmer is out in front of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 here at Pikes Peak International Raceway, just past halfway. You're watching NASCAR on NBC.
Welcome back to Pikes Peak International Raceway. Mike Bliss making a quick pit stop here under green. They are very loose. They went 2 rounds down on the track bar and adjusted the air pressure. Mike Bliss back out on the racetrack, Alan.
That would be a very early move to pit road.
Yes.
Leaders were in at lap 81, not expecting them again until around lap 190, 195. And so Mike Bliss giving up that track position, and it's going to cost him a lap to the race leader at this point. He's got to hope this thing stays green for some time. Bliss going to fall to 18th place now, 1 lap down. Scott Wimmer's your race leader. Jason Keller second. Here's Ron Hornaday racing Ashton Lewis for the 3rd spot. Hornaday in the 2, Lewis in the 46. Decal on the side of Ashton Lewis's car. His cousin, a lieutenant in the United States Navy, was killed in a helicopter crash in Sicily recently, serving our country, and so Lewis memorializing his cousin on the side of the Civil Air Patrol car for the remainder of this season with the decal on that machine. Been a nice race for the 46 team here so far. Ashton, a mechanical engineering graduate of Old Dominion University, got into NASCAR racing by building a stock car as his senior class project at Old Dominion.
Wow. You wouldn't want to race the one I would have built.
No, because yours would have been very experimental. But he was an engineering graduate, see, so there was some knowledge there.
Yeah.
Not just pure experimentalization.
Knowledge is good. I wish I had some.
Ashton has finished 12th or better in 5 of the last 6 races. Best finish of the season for him, a 3rd place at the Nashville race earlier this year. They took 2 tires to get some track position earlier. And a very nice run for the Chesapeake, Virginia driver. That sponsorship on the side of his car, they're going to cut back to an associate sponsorship for next year's Civil Air Patrol. So here's a team looking for backing for 2004.
One of many.
Yeah. It's been a frequent thing heard in this NASCAR Busch Series through these summer months. And Hornaday still hanging tough. Fallen back from the lead. But Ron has led the most laps so far today, 80. of the 148 that have been completed, but he's now 4.5 seconds off of leader Scott Wimmer and finds himself locked in this fight for third. Just take a minute and extend our condolences to the family of Bob Latford, longtime NASCAR historian, publicist. Bob invented the system used to determine the NASCAR champion. Did it on a napkin at the Boot Hill Saloon in Daytona Beach. Passed away this week after a long illness. Our condolences to the family of Bob Latford. We'll be back. NBC Sports coverage of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 is brought to you by Wendy's Late Night Pickup Window, where you can eat great, even late. And by Lamisil AT, there's no better way to cure athlete's foot. Be some hot feet here at Pikes Peak International Raceway today. Over 100 degrees air temperature, better than 130, 135 inside these NASCAR Busch Series cars. But the man who's enjoying it the most, Scott Wimmer, in Bill Davis's 23. He's out in front by 1.79 seconds with 96 laps to go.
Yep, he's out in that clean air, which all these guys love to be in these days, the way these cars are. Another guy's at clean air is that 57 car, Jason Keller. Whoa, boy. Wimmer was way high that time.
Using all the racetrack. There's Keller and the gap between the top two. Now let's check a little farther back where some of the closer racing for positions is going on. Shane Meal in the 48 and Hank Parker Jr. in the 7 are racing here just outside the top 10 for 11th and 12th. Shane Meal's car, whom you're riding on board now, owned by George Devenard. Here's a team that's been running most of the season on very limited funding. They've got a sponsorship for some of the races with the Gould's Pumps folks that you see decaled on the camera platform there. But George continues to keep this car going and going and going because he believes very much in the talent of this young driver.
And they've got a good race team. They've got a strong race team. Jerry Kinnan, the crew chief down there.
You know what's been impressive about Shane this year? Shane came into the NASCAR Busch Series a year ago as a rookie, a 22-year-old, and really pressed hard and made mistakes because he was pressing hard, involved in some crashes, different things like that. He's really impressed me with how much he's matured as a driver on these big speedways in just a year's time.
Yeah, he's done a real good job. That's normal. Young guy's going to come in and tear a lot of stuff up. But he's aggressive, and that's the big thing that you want in your race cars, a guy that's going to stand on the gas. He stands on the gas. And you know, if he calms down a little bit, which he has these last few races, and drives with his head a little bit more as much as with his foot, he's going to be a guy these guys are going to have to race against in Winston Cup very soon.
Bobby Hamilton Jr. getting set to rejoin the chase. Been behind the wall now since the accident that he was involved in at lap 64 when he and Mike Bliss tangled. Green flag pit stop for Hank Parker Jr. here.
I think Hank wants some tires.
You think?
It's been a while.
Mark?
The Kleenex Chevrolet is in. They will take on 4 tires. They're going to be scuffs. They'll also obviously take on fuel. They'll make an air and wedge adjustment. And again, going back to the communication problem, they're going back to the very same setup they started the race, in which Hank Parker said, you know, this car is just a little bit too tight. They adjusted themselves way out of the ball game. And now, again, going back to the original setup to try to gain some spots late in the event.
And that's where the communication comes in, because to some people a little bit loose is really loose, and that's when a crew chief doesn't know where the driver's coming from, because he may have worked with a guy that said, you know, hey, this car's just a little bit too tight. The last driver, when he said a little bit too tight, may have been really, really tight or not tight at all. So it takes a lot of time for the driver and the crew chief to understand each other, especially the crew chief to understand when a driver says, hey, it's a little bit loose, how loose that car really is.
And when you've only got one race in the car,
yeah,
that can hurt you.
Very tough.
6th place race here. But check that 5th place race. David Stremme in the 1, feeling some pressure from David Green in the 37. Stremme just his 9th NASCAR Busch Series race in the James Finch yellow machine. And David Green, the championship leader and the series champion from 1994. Pretty solid run there for David. David gave up some track position, came in to top off the fuel on an early caution, but has made his way back up through and stands just outside the top 5. His rivals for the championship, Scott Riggs, runs a spot behind him in 7th. And Brian Vickers in the garage after being swept in a crash at lap number 30. Scott Riggs on pit road for a stop. 88 laps to go. So I'm trying to figure out what these guys are doing here, Wally, by coming in and pitting so soon under the green. They're going down a lap to the leader.
I think a lot of them, I think the guys that are pitting now are just so loose that they're just screaming. I got to get in before I wreck this race car.
It's survival. Ralph?
Well, Wally's exactly right about that. I spoke to Mike Bliss's crew chief, and that's exactly what he said. The car was just so loose. It has nothing to do with fuel mileage strategy. They just couldn't take it any longer. Had to get him in here, get some tires on to make some adjustments and get him back out.
Now Bliss, and Riggs and Parker, who all just stopped, they're all good to go to the finish on fuel. But if they had to stop that soon for tires this time, then it's not likely they're going to run these last 90 laps or so on this set of tires.
Right.
Without hollering.
You're right.
I don't know. What about Riggs, Mark?
I just talked to his crew chief, Doug Randolph, and he said, look, we've stopped chasing the racetrack. That time we took on 4 tires, no adjustments whatsoever. They think they've got a pretty good piece right now.
As long as the caution doesn't come out and pin him a lap down. Riggs is 1 lap down in 15th place now. And if the yellow comes out before the leaders make their pit stop, then that gamble is going to not be a very good one.
See the 25 car, Bobby Hamilton Jr. came back out.
Yep, 101 laps down.
That's the hardest thing for him to do, is not to be looking in the mirror for another red and white car.
Scott Wimmer out in front of Jason Keller by 1 2/3 seconds. 84 laps to go on a hot day here outside Colorado Springs.
Welcome back to our New York studios. I'm Andrea Joyce. We'll send you back to Pikes Peak in just a moment. But first, an update on the tennis match you were watching earlier. Here's match point. Thailand's Paradorn Sherchapan defeats Frenchman Nicolas Thoman to move into tomorrow's final against American Andy Roddick. Roddick, who has taken 2 of the 3 previous meetings between the tournament's top 2 seeds, is seeking his 8th career title and 3rd this year. That match can be seen on NBC starting at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Now, back to racing from Pikes Peak.
78 laps and another round of pit stops to go here at Pikes Peak International Raceway. The Trimspa Dream Body 250 being led by Scott Wimmer. Tomorrow, NASCAR on TNT. 12:30 Eastern Time, Pennsylvania 500 from Pocono Raceway. Starts with Discover Card countdown to green. NASCAR Winston Cup Championship leader Matt Kenseth going to come from 9th on the grid. Ryan Newman won the pole position, was fastest in today's final practice. Should be a good one. The Pennsylvania 500, 12:30 Eastern tomorrow on TNT. Scott Wimmer's lead a little over a second on Jason Keller now. With Ashton Lewis 3rd, Ron Hornaday 4th, David Stremme 5th. Championship leader David Green running 6th. And the big story of the last segment of the race have been some guys short pitting. We saw Scott Riggs, 2nd place man in points on pit road under green a moment ago. So what about the leader? What's his crew thinking of when they'll make their final stop?
The crew chief for Scott Wimmer is Chris Rice. Chris, these guys short pitting, has that changed your strategy of when you're coming?
No, you know, they're not picking up a lot of time. We pick up quite a bit when we get tired, so we're in pit here in just a little bit. So just waiting on a little bit of fuel deal here, you know. Got a good car here. Had a good car all weekend, you know. I just like to thank Stacker and YJ Stinger. They hung in here, you know, with us, and Bill Davis. Just like to thank everybody, and so we do here on the pits.
When are you coming in? What lap?
Probably the next one.
Here's Jason Keller in. Going to be a 4-tire change. They were in at lap 81. This is 175. Shane Meal is in. David Stremmy's coming in. How about Ashton Lewis? He's continuing to run in second spot. When will we see him on pit road? David Stremme almost missed the opening to pit road in that one car, but he got it wound down in time. And he's in for a stop. Ralph?
Well, the one is in, Allen. They've started 12th today. They're currently running in 5th. A little bit loose. They're going to take 4 tires and some gas. Minor adjustments to the car. And David Stremme will be getting back out onto the racetrack. And we expect Ashton Lewis in another lap or 2.
Scott Wimmer is in right now. They're already around the right side. A good-looking stop. They're taking on 4 tires, making absolutely no adjustments to this car whatsoever. Scott likes it, and they're not going to change it. A little bit of a problem on the left rear, but now he's down and away.
Well, instead of going the 110 to 115 laps on fuel we were expecting, here are the leaders stopping 96 laps after they came in last. Ron Hornaday's in. Tim Fita was on pit road. Johnny Sauter is stopped and is beginning to head out. And here comes your second place man, Ralph Ashton Lewis.
Charlie Lewis, the crew chief on the car, making the calls on what they want to do to it. They're going to make an adjustment to the chassis on the left rear of the car. They will take 4 tires for Ashton. Been a very solid run for this team here today. Been very pleased with their performance. Lap time's been right where they like them. They get the car finished, all the fuel in, and away they go.
David Green took over the race lead when Ashton Lewis stopped. Now here comes David at the head end of pit road. NASCAR Busch Series Championship leader stopping with 72 laps to go as he rolls down the pit lane at the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit toward the attention of his crew. Looking for a good smooth 4-tire stop here.
I don't see him making too many adjustments here. They may have made some air pressure adjustments, but I don't see any wrenches flying.
See the catch can man hanging on to that second gas can. They're not allowed to throw it back over the wall now. Good stop.
Yep, very good.
So David Green heads back out to join the chase. Joey Clanton took over the lead when David stopped. Now here comes Joey in for his service. Ralph?
Joey Clanton is in. The first tank of fuel goes in the car as well. 4 tires will be the call here as well. Doesn't look like they're going to make any chassis adjustments. Pretty happy with it. The first can of fuel is in. Come around to the left side of the car. Joey just waiting for the other tires to get put on, and he'll be back underway. A very solid stop for Joey Clanton. Tire service is done. Fueling is in, and he's away.
Yeah, a little bit long. But Clanton doing a fine job here today. Rookie driver out of the ASA series. Casey Kane is not stopped in this cycle of stops, so the 38 car is the leader. And then once he comes in, the lead is going to go to Jason Keller, who got off pit road ahead of Scott Wimmer. There's Casey in the 38. Remember, Casey got tangled up racing with Stacy Compton for second spot back at lap 81. Went to the back of the field. It's gotten back as high as 6th and 7th spots under Green. And now takes over the lead by running a little bit farther on this tank of fuel than some of the others.
Got to be careful not to stay out too long on those tires, because if your lap times have really fallen off, then you've got all these other guys behind you that are making up a lot of time right now because they have fresh tires. So if you wait too long and then come in and pit, you've lost a lot of track position.
Yeah, Casey's last lap time was a 29:56, and Jason Keller ran in the 28s.
Yeah.
So he's given up a second anyway at 28:80. So he's given up, what, 3/4 of a second on that last lap. '27 car, Clanton, because Casey Kane is not stopped, is the first car 1 lap down.
Not for long.
Yep.
Back on the lead lap.
Important in case the caution flag came out.
That's probably really what these guys in 38 car are obviously kind of gambling, hoping that a yellow would come out.
Well, he's only 8 seconds ahead of Jason Keller, so if he pits now, he's going to go a lap down. Might as well run it to the end of the fuel window, see if you catch a break.
Yeah.
Lead lap cars, we've got 12 of them right now. Casey Kane, Jason Keller, Scott Wimmer, Scott Riggs, and Ashton Lewis. Top 5. Then Ron Hornaday, David Stremme, David Green, Stacy Compton, Johnny Sauter, Kevin Grubb, and Joey Clanton. Those are the top 12 that are on the lead lap. Here comes the leader giving up his position on the track for his stop. So with 65 laps to go, the cycle of pit stops will be completed as Casey Kane comes to the attention of his crew. Ralph?
Casey Kane is driving chassis number 36 today. It's the car that he ran in Nashville where he started 6th and finished 29th. Just going to take on some tires, make a small adjustment to the chassis on the right side, the right rear. They get that taken care of. The fuel is in. Casey, of course, been complaining like everybody else. The car's a little bit loose. Nothing too major. They got a tire stuck at the front of the car. Somebody's got to get that. That could cost them a little bit. An 18.5-second stop. Not quite as quick as they would have hoped.
Casey goes a lap down, though, by virtue of staying out for longer and taking a chance on catching a caution. So Jason Keller goes back out in front. 63 laps to go. He's in front of Scott Wimmer by 2 1/3 seconds. Check the gap. There's Keller. And there's Wimmer. Mark, something going on with that 23 car on his pit stop?
Alan, he got in here in the nick of time. That car was tightening up, and when they came in, they took the right front tire off, and you can see where I circled here, it began to blister. There's a patch out of the tire here, and a little bit farther back, there's some bubbles in it, so it was getting worse. They probably figured 3 or 4 more laps. If they hadn't come in, it might have blown. Now, the good news there is they had gone 92 laps to get it to that condition. After pitting, they've got only 74 to go.
Well, that's a save.
Hey, you got to be lucky to win these things.
Absolutely.
You know? All right, so Scott Wimmer is off now in second place. He was the leader before the stops, but he's got a little hole to dig out of here if he's going to catch Jason Keller for the top spot. Keller 5th in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship, trying to gain some ground in the title today. You're watching NASCAR on NBC. NASCAR on NBC from Pikes Peak International Raceway outside of Colorado Springs. The NASCAR Busch Series in the Trimspa Dream Body 250. Jason Keller is the race leader. There are 55 laps to go. He's up on Scott Wimmer by 2 8/10 seconds with Scott Riggs, Ron Hornaday, and Ashton Lewis rounding out the top 5. Let's tell you how we got to this point in the race. It has been an eventful afternoon here at Pikes Peak so far. We started lap 31. An accident that happens in front of Brian Vickers, the third-place driver in the championship. There in that 5 car gets caught up in the aftermath. Vickers out of the race early, going to lose a chunk of points today. Bobby Hamilton Jr. gets nudged by Mike Bliss into the outside wall. That was after they tangled a week ago at New Hampshire. They'll both be visiting with NASCAR officials after the race. This was a race for second place between Stacy Compton and Casey Kane gone wrong. Said both of those drivers chance to win back. You see Jason Keller, the current leader, with a nice move there through the spinning cars to keep his winning bid intact. We've seen a little fuel strategy. We've seen some guys taking some different tires on pit road at different times, but it's all come down to a very long green flag run in which Jason Keller has moved up, taken the lead, and stretched out a little bit of a gap on Scott Wimmer.
And a little quicker pit stop.
Right, he took the lead on the pit stop.
Right.
And has moved out just a little bit of a gap here.
The pit boys have put him in the lead.
6th, 7th, and 8th. Johnny Sauter 21, David Stremme 1, Stacy Compton in the 59.
I've been watching Stacy these last few laps. He's passed a couple of cars. The car looks really good on the racetrack. Here you see him working over the 1 car, but with the damage that they had earlier on that mishap, looks like they've got the car handling pretty good, and he's going to the front.
Compton started this race in second position. Led a couple of laps early on. You saw the incident in our race recap a second ago in which he and Casey Kane got together. Stacy wrinkled in that front piece of the nose piece of his car. You can see kind of bent up and pulled back out, and that set his handling back for a while. But even though they've had to make some of these pit stops under the green flag, they've seemed to have done a very nice job to get it fixed and keep him in contention.
Yeah, the car looks awfully good. It looks like it's a little bit loose getting out the corner like everybody else out there.
Been under the green flag for a long time in this one. Last caution was at lap number 81. We've just crossed lap 200 now. So as expected here at Pikes Peak, a very long stretch of green flag racing for these drivers to contend with to try and settle it out.
And I think some of these guys are in trouble as far as, you know, the guys that stopped earlier because their cars were so loose, they're in the same boat right now.
Like Scott Riggs?
Like Scott Riggs and Bliss and guys like that. Unless they really made the right adjustments on their car, they're going to be looking for tires again.
How about David Stremme, 8th place, Mark?
He's doing a great job. And, you know, earlier today, Alan, he passed out a number of T-shirts that said Yellow Racing, and this is the Making Friends Tour 2003 T-shirt. A number of the drivers wore them under their driver's uniform today. Now, what this was sort of a preemptive strike. If you're a rookie driver, you're going to get in trouble. So before he got in trouble with some guys, he gave him a T-shirt. So then he should hit him or spin him or wreck him. He goes, look, remember, I gave you the free T-shirt, okay? Now, for a couple of guys he's already been in mix-ups with this year, for instance, like Casey Kane, he gave one to Casey, said, are we good? Casey said, all right, I'll take your T-shirt, we're good. They offered one to Johnny Sauter. He said, no way. So they maybe have to put a hat in and a T-shirt, maybe to get Johnny Sauter to forgive David Stremme.
I know what you're thinking, and it's out of the question.
What?
We're never going to be friends, so don't even look at me like that.
Oh, come on. You just like to portray that image to people. I was actually expecting you to make some sort of comment on, you know all about trying to make friends on the racetrack.
I have no friends on or off the racetrack. That's the way I like it.
There's your leader, Jason Keller. 5th place in the NASCAR Busch Series Championship, 91 points behind leader David Green, coming in looking for his 2nd win of 2003. He's 47 laps away from the checkered flag. NBC Sports coverage of the Trimspa Dream Body 250 is brought to you by Trimspa. Available completely ephedra-free. Get your high-speed Dream Body diet pill today. And by Mobil 1, the official motor oil of NASCAR. A scorching day here outside of Colorado Springs. Air temperature better than 100 degrees, but better than 30,000 fans have turned out to see the NASCAR Busch Series in their once-a-year stop here. Jason Keller's the man of the hour so far, as he's out in front by 2.5 seconds over Scott Wimmer with 42 laps to go. Tomorrow night at 10/9 Central, it's NBC's newest reality drama, The Restaurant. America will be watching as New York's hottest chef opens a restaurant. I've seen some of the previews on this. It looks really good. The Restaurant, Sunday night, 10/9 Central, NBC. I'm going to owe Wally a trip to a restaurant.
That's right, and it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, a little disagreement over something that didn't go my way, as always. How about 6th place here? Stacy Compton trying to rally back toward the front.
Yeah, he's, like I said, been watching him for the last 20, 30 laps. But I don't know what adjustments they made there in the pits, but I think Stacy liked him.
It'd be nice to see him get a top finish. It's been a tough season. We talked about that earlier. That last stretch of the race has gotten him a lot various times during the year, but here he comes despite the crash damage earlier, making a nice little rally that puts him into 6th place. Got a little bit of ground, though, to make up before he'll catch the 5th place car, Johnny Sauter. And a good job by Lewis and company, too. And Joey Clanton, for that matter. Here's a rookie driver in that red 27 Trimspa machine, getting the top 10 finish going here. See the scoring serial there on Stacy Compton. Going by Tammy Jo Kirk to put her a lap down. Tammy Jo back in 21st place. Whoa, careful.
Yep. Joey Clanton trying to get the 46 car of Ashton Lewis a little bit loose.
Clanton, a mechanical engineering and dynamic mechanical systems degree holder from
All these
Georgia
guys
Tech.
are engineers.
Yeah, well, that's where it's at these days in the game, right? 2000 ASA champion. It is 12th NASCAR Busch Series race, picking up a spot into 7th place.
Oh, I could have been a train engineer, I believe.
You've engineered a lot of mayhem.
Maybe they don't. Too bad they don't give degrees for that, Alan.
Yeah. So 37 laps to go. And you see Clanton trying to keep pace there with Stacy Compton and see if he can maybe get another spot away.
Just watching Jason Keller here the last few laps. He's had the left side tires almost down on the apron, looking to see if there's any grip down there on the apron at 3 and 4. See what he does down here, 1, 2. Yeah, he's down. Well, he's trying to get down there.
Last 3 races here at Pikes Peak, Jason Keller has led 50, 42, and 57 laps, but he's finished 12th, 4th, and 3rd. Here today, he started at the back of the field after they had to make an engine change because of a mechanical failure during practice. Came all the way through the pack to get back into contention and took the lead when his crew got him the advantage on an exchange of stops with Scott Wimmer. That exchange of stops came when Keller pitted at 175 and Wimmer at 176. Jason came out with the advantage, and he's driven away from Wimmer to about a 2-second lead. And 12 different drivers lead today, 14 lead changes. Record for most number of leaders at this racetrack will be broken. It was 8 at 12 today. And the record for fewest number of cars in the lead lap might be in jeopardy, as Keller's setting a pretty blistering pace here. Had 8 cars on the lead lap at the finish of this race in 2000 and 2001. And right now we're down to 12. Scott Riggs, one of the guys who short pitted. There's David Green, the championship leader, and check how they run as the championship standings stack up at this point. Green came into the day with a 36-point advantage on Scott Riggs. Scott's running,
wow, look at that,
3rd place, and David is running in 11th.
Wow,
so far, that last exchange of pit stops, remember when Riggs short pitted, that's worked out for the 10. And the NASCAR Busch Series at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Nice little short track race there. 0.6 of a mile bull ring. Next Saturday night, that'll be on TNT.
Look at that, right on the apron.
32 laps to go for Jason Keller, trying to pick up his 2nd win of 2003 and a little chunk of ground in the race for the NASCAR Busch Series Championship. NBC Sports coverage of NASCAR today from Pikes Peak International Raceway near Colorado Springs, where Jason Keller in that 57 car is closing in on a victory in the Trimspa Dream Body 250. 26 laps to go. Let's do a little mini through the field here with the cars that are on the lead lap. Mark, you're first.
Jason Keller, Alan, you mentioned before, had a lead better than 2.5 seconds. It's now down to about 7/10. I talked to his crew chief, Steve Addington, just a moment ago. I said, what about the car? He said, right now, Jason hasn't said a word about it. I said, what have you said to him? He said, if he's not talking, I'm not talking. This is the same car that won the race at Milwaukee they're trying to hang on with today.
Oh, man, where did Scott Wimmer come from? Look at this. He's all over Keller for the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Keller got hung up trying to get by the 1 car of Davis Tremmy, and there's a 23 to take advantage of it. And I think that 57 car is having a little bit of trouble getting some grip. If he's down on the apron like that, normally that's what you're looking for.
Man, as Mark was talking about a second ago, it was 2 seconds behind for Wimmer, and now he's right there on Keller's back bumper.
Well, at first I thought he was getting him in, you know, because Jason was in traffic, but the 23 car of Wimmer was getting through traffic a lot better.
They have put David Green, the championship leader, a lap down. David back in 12th place. They've just put David Stremme a lap down. Wimmer's going to try the outside lane here. Coming to 23 to go. And Jason's going to give him room.
Yeah, Jason left it open.
New leader, Scott Wimmer. Thank you. Wow, so all of a sudden, the handle on Keller's car falls off, and here comes Wimmer with the big charge up to take the top spot. And now just 22 laps to go. Behind them, 3rd place car of Scott Riggs is a long way back. He's 9 seconds down. So this is going to be decided among these two, but if Keller's struggling that bad that he couldn't hold Wimmer off and he just waved him by,
yeah,
it's going to be tough to mount a charge and come back on him. There's
the only thing, you know, maybe if the 57 car of Jason Keller will take advantage of Wimmer getting caught up in traffic, which could easily happen.
You got to look at your championship leader, David Green, who again has fallen off the lead lap. 1 lap down, now in 12th place. How about that 23 car, Mark? What a rally.
It certainly is, Alan. They started after that last stop too tight. It's still a tick tight, but as this run has gone on, it has freed up the car just a bit. Now, during that last pit stop, I mentioned that they were happy. They were not going to make any changes, but at the very last second, crew chief Chris Rice told me they did decide to make an air pressure adjustment because Scott said, look, the car's getting way too tight all of a sudden. They had no idea, of course, that right front tire was blistering. So after the stop, when he saw how far back they had dropped to Jason, and early on in the run, Jason was gaining ground and opening up more of an advantage, he was really kind of disappointed. He said, you know, if we just left it alone, if we could have just known that was a blistered tire, we would have left it alone and we'd be really good. So they thought that car was too tight. They didn't think the track would come to them, but apparently it has.
Yeah, a little bit of cloud cover too over some of the racetrack right now.
Cool the racing surface off and send some of the car's handling for a little change. Joey Clanton trying to get 6th spot away from Stacy Compton. And they've got some slower cars ahead that they're going to come across here. Whoa, hang on, Joey. That would be a good illustration of a push, huh?
Yeah, literally.
So Clanton's got to regroup, and for now he falls back in line in 7th spot and tries to mount the charge on Stacy Compton again. Put the lap on the Mike Harmon car, the 44. David Green has really fallen off here to the point that he's gone a lap down, Ralph. What's up with that?
Well, I spoke to his crew chief, Jason Ratcliffe. I said, Jason, how's the car? And he looked at me and he goes, not good. Right now, the car is very, very loose. They can make it to the end. They're just trying to survive, get out of here, Alan, with as many points as they possibly can. There's nothing they can do to fix the car or the situation now.
Yeah, it's something that some of the drivers were talking about happened to them in yesterday's practice. You go out, you run, the car behaves a certain way. You come in, you bolt on another set of tires, the car behaves a different way.
Yeah, there's not much you can do to adjust for that. I mean, you know, if you start chasing the race car, I mean, there's nothing you can do for that.
Might be the situation David finds himself in here. Green running now in 12th position with 15 laps to go. And if he finishes there and Scott Riggs finishes 3rd, that's really going to tighten things up. Even more so than it already is for that NASCAR Busch Series championship. So Green racing David Stremme for that spot. Meantime, Scott Riggs kind of running out there all by himself. Long ways behind 2nd place, long ways ahead of 3rd place, and he'll reclaim the championship lead if he's able to run that finish out where he is right now in 3rd spot. So when Scott Riggs short pitted a little bit earlier at lap 162, which was about 13 laps ahead of when Keller and Wimmer made their pit stops, that worked out to his advantage.
Yes.
Those 13 laps on fresh tires allowed him to make up a chunk of ground.
And making the right adjustments. Obviously, they made the right adjustments when they made that pit stop, make that car work a little bit better so they could go longer on the tires. And he's got 5 seconds on the guy behind him. He knows he's not going to catch guys in front of him, so
just keep it between the walls.
That's it.
And Scott Wimmer out in front of Jason Keller by 0.8 of a second. Keller's trying to hang with him, but he's not been able to close in and mount a charge to try and retake the lead. Mark?
Take a look at Chris Rice. He started this race, and for most of the race, he was on top of the war wagon. He's climbed down. I said, why did you do that? He goes, I can't watch. I can't bear it. I'm just going to watch the screen, bark out the times to Scott Wimmer every once in a while, tell him about the gap between him and Jason Keller. He said, but I am not going to watch the rest of this race. I'm going to stick right here. He said, I am just so nervous as a rookie crew chief who has never won a race. Now, Scott Wimmer, this is his third appearance out at Pikes Peak, but as a young man, as a youngster, he made 5 or 6 trips out here to Colorado. He was a junior Olympic downhill skier. When he was 14 years old, he placed 13th among 150 skiers. Now, we do have a resident Alpine California surfer dude by the name of Ralph Shaheen. And Ralph, I know you guys were talking schmushing and moguling and all that stuff today, right?
Yeah, we did swap some skiing war stories, and we were talking about that. And I asked him, you know, when you're doing downhill competition, you're looking at speeds in the Junior Olympics, probably around 60 miles an hour, very steep, very icy conditions, no roll cage. I said, what happens if you fell on that? Did you think that hurts more than crashing in a bush car at, say, 150, 160? He said, oh, yeah, there's a couple of times I put it into that orange fencing, cartwheeled down the mountainside, and never enjoyed that. He said, I never really enjoyed the cold air either, so you should feel real comfortable here today. And I also asked him, what did you get out of that you could take to the bush car to help make you a better racer? He said the biggest thing he learned was that his skiing coach taught him to look 2 gates ahead down the mountain. He said that has gotten me to look farther up the racetrack, be more prepared for what I see when I get to the corner. I can always memorize a race course, he said, and here the good news is I only got to memorize 4 corners. Alan?
He's closing in on a victory today. 8 laps to go for Scott Wimmer. Things pretty settled up front, but this is for 5th place as Ron Hornaday is slipping back in that 2 car. Stacy Compton and Joey Clanton trying to mount a charge and get a top 5 out of it.
Yeah, I would think this is going to be pretty hard passing Hornaday with 8 laps to go, 7 laps to go.
Hornaday, one of the contenders for the NASCAR Busch Series title, 4th place in the championship coming in. Remember, 3rd place Brian Vickers went to the garage early in an accident. Look out!
Yo!
Well, he got the worst of that. So Hornaday back to 7th. And Clanton and Compton race for 5th.
I think he just probably avoided a pretty big wreck.
As wiggly as Stacy Compton's car was off of turn 2 there, may not be done avoiding wrecks.
No.
Slower cars ahead. It's the car of Hamilton Jr. back out on the track. Stacy trying to make some running room.
And he got blocked in by Bobby Hamilton Jr. there. One whole lot he could do.
Joey Clanton with the nice move to use the pick. So Clanton into the top 5 in his sponsors race. There'll be some folks in one of these luxury suites up here at the racetrack pretty happy about that. Compton to 6th and Hornaday to 7th. Brian Vickers going to finish 29th today. David Green running 12th. Scott Riggs running 3rd. And our leader now with 4 laps to go. Scott Wimmer is from Wausau, Wisconsin. 27 years old, came on last season like gangbusters, winning 4 races in the final stretch run of the 2002 season. He picked up his victories a year ago at Dover, Memphis, Phoenix, and the season finale at the Homestead Miami Speedway. So far this season, his best effort has been a trio of 5th place finishes at Richmond, Kentucky, and New Hampshire last week. But his new crew chief, Chris Rice, really getting the feel together with Wimmer here over this last month or so, and Scott feeling like they're perfectly positioned for another late season surge to victory lane again.
Oh, he just keeps it clean like he's doing.
2 more miles for Scott Wimmer. Trying to put Ashton Lewis a lap down. Lewis is the 9th place driver in that 46 car.
He may not be trying real hard.
He can't lay back that far. Keller is just a second behind him, so he can't get out of it. 8 cars left on the lead lap. White flag is up. Final lap here at Pikes Peak. Scott Wimmer seeking his 5th career NASCAR Busch Series win. Lewis ducks to his inside, but gives the leader plenty of room. And somewhere up in Pocono on Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, Bill Davis is smiling broadly. The team owner for Kenny Wallace and Ward Burton in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series is about to watch his NASCAR Busch Series team take the checkered flag.
But of course, Gail Davis calls all the shots on this team.
Of course she does. And Gail's going to cash a nice check after Scott Wimmer wins the Trimspa Dream Body 250 at Pikes Peak.
Uh-oh, got one.
Trouble. David Green, the championship leader, spinning off the final corner. Does it cost him any spots? No. Nope.
Almost.
He squeezed in ahead of Tim Fiedler to finish 12th. Scott Wimmer led 70 laps today on 2 different occasions. Went to the front for the final time at lap 227. And led to the conclusion at lap 250. First victory of 2003 and the 12th different NASCAR Busch Series winner in 21 races this season. Nice job.
Very nice.
Nice salute from the crowd, too. All right, show us what you got here, Scott. Our mobile command performance of the day. We'll give the tip of that cap to Scott Wimmer. Rallying back, gave up the lead on a pit stop, came back, took the top spot, and the checkered flag. Commanding performance today for Scott Wimmer, and the Mobile One command performance of the day. Take a break here, come back, talk to the winner, show you the finishing results of today's race at Pikes Peak right after this.
Scott Wimmer crawls out of the car and the shower begins here in Victory Lane at Pikes Peak International Raceway. Scott, come over here. Time for one quick question. Tell me about it, how you ran them down there at the end. Where did you find all that speed?
The guys made a great call on the pit stop. Jace Keller is a great race car driver. Been trying to win a race for a long time. My brother got hurt in a construction accident a few months ago, and he's pretty banged up. And I also lost my best friend, Flint Merwin, in a snowmobile accident earlier this year. So that wins for them. Stacker 2, YJ Stinger. We got great sponsors, a great team.
Heavy heart, wet microphone, wet driver's seat. He's your winner here today, Scott Wimmer. Mark Garrow?
I'm with the guy who finished 3rd. You fought it for 2 days, Scott Riggs, but you come out of here with a top 5 and the point lead. How does it feel to be a whole whopping 2 points up on David Green?
Well, I mean, it just feels good to be able to come out of here with a good solid finish, because we did struggle a lot with this car. Had a fuel pickup problem right there the last couple of runs, and I had to really conserve fuel, so really couldn't make a hard charge to try to get to the front. But I mean, these guys never give up on this Nesquik Ford Taurus, and you know, awesome calls in the pits, awesome stops every day, every time, and every race, and we're just, you know, showing how strong we can be. We came back from all odds and had a good solid finish, and that's what winning a championship's all about.
Alan? So let's check the finishing order from today's Trimspa Dream Body 250. Scott Wimmer with the victory. Riggs finishing 3rd. David Green, who led the championship coming into the day, despite that last corner spin, wound up finishing in 12th position. There you see Green. Parker Jr., defending winner of the race, winds up 15th. The big story of the day, besides the win for Scott Wimmer, the guys who had troubles that are involved in the championship. Brian Vickers, involved in a crash, finishes 29th today. Bobby Hamilton Jr. finished 25th, involved in that controversial incident with Mike Bliss, for which they'll both be visiting with NASCAR officials now that the race has concluded. And the championship standings heading to the race at Indianapolis Raceway Park next Saturday night are oh so close. Riggs back out on top, but just barely, with David Green just a couple of markers behind him at the conclusion of today's race. There you go, 2 points between the top 2 at the conclusion of today's event. Tomorrow, the drama of NASCAR on TNT, starting at 12:30 Eastern Time with Discover Card Countdown to Green. Then live from Long Pond, Pennsylvania, it's the Pennsylvania 500. NBC tonight, 8/7 Central. It's NBC's new reality series, The Restaurant, followed by back-to-back episodes of Dog Eat Dog. So long from Colorado, Scott Wimmer has won. You've been watching NASCAR on NBC.